Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be covering something a little bit different than U.S. elections. We've mostly gone through the predictions for the U.S. elections, which are quite a bit away. So I figured we do something different. I will also make a video on Canada if you guys like. But Canada, I feel like a lot of people know about Canada. It's pretty easy to analyze, but very close to Canada. Canada will be April 28th. We will be streaming that, but at the same time, May 1st, you will have the 2025 UK local elections happen, which these are very important. These will be the first local elections since after the 2024 general election. You had local elections right before the 2024 general election, which in part forecasted the conservatives not doing so well. Um, it's actually better than 2023, where they lost 1,000 seats. I'm not even kidding. They lost 1,000 seats. But 2025 will be the test. Whether many of these leaders can survive at the local level. It will be a test of Keir Starmer's popularity, which currently is not looking that good. A minus 21 approval rating. Actually, perhaps for the better. Um, Compared to the average British Prime Minister. I mean, Liz Truss was 77-9. To put that in perspective, um, when Boris Johnson resigned, he was about the same as Keir Starmer is now. And Rishi Sunak was virtually during the campaign. He was basically the same. Um, little bit worse. Keir Starmer has climbed from a pretty deep hole. Um, Especially last year towards the end of the beginning of this year. Though, once again, the polling for this is very, very infrequent, so of course, take it with a grain of salt. Um, we have much more polling for the general election, but we'll get to that later. So, you might think, oh, this is going to be a test of, which party will do the best. Labor, who's ahead in the polls. If we look at these polls, Labor is very slightly ahead, 24% to Reforms, 24%, and Conservatives at 22%. Um, they've fought for the lead. Reform had the lead for a little bit there. They did a lot back in February, but due to some scandals, namely the Rupert Lowe stuff and the fact that Reform just kind of lost its momentum. Um, and for the most part, it seems like they haven't. I don't want to mention that too much because it's by elections to council seats, which I'll get into what councils mean in a little bit, but they aren't performing the best in those elections, so something to watch. But for now, anyways, the main thing to take away is that Reform and Labor are virtually tied in the polls, and the Conservatives are a little bit behind. They could potentially win the popular vote. Um, if they're able to surge, they were actually ahead um, in the rough aggregate for like a few days, and then they immediately died. They just got obliterated. Um, Weird how that coincides almost exactly with Kemi Badenoch becoming leader. It's a weird coincidence. Um, we are getting, we are getting wonderful. We are getting quite a few polls for this, and I'm pretty confident in saying that this is around where the popular vote would be if the election were held today. But interestingly, actually, the party polling in third there is the slight favorite going into these local elections. The party polling in first is more than likely not going to win them. What do I mean by win them? Win the most seats up here. Which the fact that that's remotely competitive, looking at these last election seats, conservatives have 1,200 seats up. Labor has 336 seats. The Liberal Democrats are they're nearly tied with the governing supermajority, which, in case you don't know, um, this is what it looks like currently. Labor has like over 60% of the seats, and in this class of local seats, the Liberal Democrats are nearly tied with them, and the Greens have 37 seats. Reform has 0 seats, kind of. The big thing is that these elections were last up in 2021, which was a conservative landslide. Um, Boris Johnson and the Conservatives were broadly popular due to their handling of COVID. Um, they were very well approved of. We could actually go to that point in the polling, I think, here. Yeah, you can see 2020, 2021. It gets a little bit bad for Johnson, but he's able to pick it up towards the end. The local elections are held here. His approval is +6, which is pretty impressive. Um, and then immediately his party dies. We actually have some local elections that happened here, which we can go to. Um, yeah, losing 485 counselors isn't exactly the best result. And for the most part, it works kind of like it's kind of like state legislatures. Obviously, they don't have as much party or as much power. Um, but think of it as if like about every 4 years you had like 1/4 or 1/5 of state legislative seats up. Um, each county has its own legislature. You also have some other things. You have the mayors, which is mayor. I mean, it's hard to describe. The UK is a shit show with this. Um, but mayors are carved out. Not every place has a mayor, and it's really not a local thing. Um, like these cities, air quotes, that have mayoral elections are pretty big. Um, like obviously London is one that has a mayoral election. Um, uh, it's like it's I'd say the rough equivalent is a, gubernatorial election, but the main thing is this class, if you want to call it that, because it's not exactly every 4 years these are up. Um, actually had some that were going to be up this time around that were delayed to 2026 for bullshit reasons. The reason is reform would have flipped a shit ton of these seats. Um, but for the most part, um, it's a good indicator of how the UK is looking, especially compared to this, which we have this current projection. So in this projection, actually, Labor is going down. Liberal Democrats are breaking even. The Conservatives, obviously, their support is halved. But then Reform is nearly able to beat the Conservatives here. This was March, 2025, which I think wasn't exactly the best for the Conservatives back in March 2025. It was around where it is now. Maybe a little bit worse for reform compared to labor. So this should, for the most part, hold. Conservatives seem pretty consistent in getting their 22%. It does depend on how this campaign is run. Um, but for now, it seems like the conservatives are the slight favorites heading into this election. But what I'd look for, do the conservatives get obliterated? Because that can happen. The Conservatives are a vastly unpopular party. They're associated with the guy who left office with a -30 approval. It's nearly -40 actually approval rating. Kemi Kemi Badenoch is not a popular figure. She's not likable. She was picked just because of the color of her skin. It's funny how much pandering all these Western conservative parties do to minorities, but I mean, that's why. And while I do think Nigel Farage and Reform is a deeply flawed opposition party, there's a lot to look into. I think especially what Nigel Farage did to Rupert Lowe is pretty. I mean, it's scummy. Um, I would say for these local elections, if I had to pick a party to support, I'd pretty easily support Reform. Um, Reform is the closest thing the UK has to a populist not really nationalist, but a populist anti-establishmentarian party. Labor is a complete disaster. Though it's funny, they're trying to tie Nigel Farage to Kemi Badenoch. Um, vote for Nigel is a vote for Niger, but you can see in their ads like it's Nigel Farage's face morphed with Kemi Badenoch's. It's hilarious. But For the most part, these are important. See if reforms meeting their benchmarks, giving the conservatives a run for their money on this map. See if labor is going down, since actually, if you look at these polls, um, way back when, uh, 2021, um, yeah, this actually goes back a while, but 2021 during the local elections, Labor's at 35% of the polls nationwide. They're at 24% now, so they're probably slated to make losses, even with the extra vote splitting that has occurred. But Liberal Democrats, I mean, them beating Labor here would be really funny. I'm not so sure that happens. Uh, the seats do seem to be somewhat Liberal Democrat favor, but like Liberal Democrats really don't have the polling numbers I think that they need for something like that. As funny as it would be, they've gone from 10% to well, the 15% is based on one poll. It's really like 13, 14%. It's an impressive improvement, but I don't know if it's enough to get them these seats. The Greens are completely irrelevant. But watch to see if Conservatives or Reform UK get first. Because if Reform UK gets first, that is a death blow to the Conservatives. There's also the question of whether Kemi Badenoch could be forced out as leader. I've heard some stuff. There's really two things that she has to do. One, they want her to win the local elections, and two, by like August, they want her to take the lead in the polling aggregate. Um, unless Labor and Reform keep going down together, that's going to be pretty hard when her base of support has been the exact same for half a year. I mean, that's an exaggeration because they went up a little bit here, but like ever since January to April, they've been just 22%. You haven't made any breakthroughs whatsoever. So she could be forced out if conservatives have a bad performance. Um, but that's mainly it for the council elections. You also have on the same ballot a Runcorn and Helpsby by-election. So what happened is the Labor MP was he resigned in disgrace due to um, assault. He was going to be recalled anyways, but he resigned. Now, this seat is a pretty heavily Labor seat. Um, this is it here. It voted for Labor by over 50%. Now, the Labor incumbent was, like I said, an incumbent here, which is something you really can't say for a lot of these seats. Remember, Conservatives had a pretty large majority going into this election. Like, over half of the Labor MPs were freshman MPs here, but he was one of the minority that were incumbent representatives. Reform actually got second here over the Conservatives. Now, resigning from a post in disgrace does hurt the incumbent party. Think like the 2024 special election in New York's third. Had that been held under normal circumstances, like Republicans nominated a good candidate, the George Santos brand wasn't hurting Republicans' image, and the fact that Long Island elections are actually more Republican in off years, that probably should have been a conservative. Or I'm too focused on foreign politics. That probably should have been a Republican hold. But it ended up flipping Democrat by 8, which was more than the seat voted for Tom Suozzi in 2024. Part of the reason why I think he could have a tougher reelection than people think. These incumbents resigning in scandal, resigning in disgrace, does matter for these elections. That's part of the reason why reform is actually pulling ahead here. Now, I don't know if I buy these polls. They also are very narrow leads for reform. Um, this will be held at the exact same time as these local elections. It's around here, in case you're wondering. Actually, you could look at that yourself. You guys are smart. You guys are smarter than me. It's like here. Um, so yeah, I don't care about this map. It's too ugly for me to understand. This map makes sense. Oh my god, look, there's some councils. Wow. Um, but this map, sweet generous council. What the fuck does that mean? But the Reform candidate Sarah Pochin seems like the slight favorite, which would boost Reform UK back up to 5 seats. After Rupert Lowe was expelled from caucus for I'm gonna be honest, complete fucking bullshit. Like he did nothing wrong. Um, but be a credible threat to Nigel Farage. I still support Farage in this election, which shows UK doesn't have the best options. But that's going to be important. And if Reform flips this, it like Labor has to be sweating because that was one of their incumbents. From before this election, they won that seat with 50% of the vote. They got 33.8 nationwide. I, Imagine what happens like these seats where um these seats one Reform is a much better poised to win some of these seats. Like they're at 30%, and that's 18%, 26%, 24%, um, uh, 21%, 27%, compared to this seat where they start off with 18%. They start off 18% to 53%, down 35%. And now they seem like the favorites to flip that. It's a very concerning it's very concerning for Labor. We also do have another election that probably is coming up soon. It's not going to be able to schedule time for the May 1st local elections, but Northeast Somerset and Hanham, it looks like the incumbent, another freshman MP, probably ends up resigning. I think he did some bad stuff. I'm gonna pretend I don't know what he did, but I think he did some really bad stuff, and he is resigning once again in disgrace. Now, this is actually a potential conservative flip, and with Labor collapsing in the polls from 33.8% down to what 24%, it more than likely flips. But the question here is whether it flips the Conservatives or Reform. Because if Reform wins the seat, then that's another terrible sign. Because Reform, for the most part, has been doing well in a lot of these Labor constituencies. Actually, Labor is losing more to Reform than to the Conservatives or to really any other party combined, based on some of the polls I've seen. We have this, which is a nowcast. I don't know how much I buy this. I think it's an interesting idea. Uh, the two things I want to point out is one, Rincorn and Helsby is expected to go to Labor by 11 points in the simulation, so that's a pretty big. That's pretty big if conservatives are going to get crushed here. They're pulling at 12%. But if Reform is able to win there, that's pretty big. Defying these expectations, which are already pretty good. They show them at 147 seats, which is above the conservatives, and relatively close to Labor. Um, but they also show here conservatives are pulling ahead of Reform for Northeast Somerset and Hanham. It's very close though, 29 to or technically 30 to 28 to 24. Really anyone's game, especially since Reform UK, based on these polls, they're actually doing better with those who are guaranteed to vote. They seem to do better in these off years, which is part of the reason why the fact that Reform isn't doing that great in these by-elections. In case you don't know what a by-election is, special elections for these councilships, but potentially that's these pollsters being idiots, or it's just you have to have like a baseline of notoriety about the election, for people to turn out for it. But this is going to be close, and it's important also to look where the conservatives are, because they got 16% here last time, with 23.7% nationwide. They're expected to get around the same percent. It seems like the conservatives just have their base to support. There's this idea among a lot of people that like how the election is going and why Reform surged was like Labor was ahead, but then Labor bled votes to conservatives, who are like this moderate party, and then the conservatives bled votes to Reform. That's not at all what happened. Labor votes are going straight to Reform. Now, some conservatives are flipping to Reform. The problem is, if you didn't flip in 2024 of all years, it's going to be hard to break that loyalty to the Conservative Party. Labor is collapsing because honestly, Reform in how they position themselves, they're also pretty close to Labor. I mean, it's in the name, Labor, a working class party. Reform is positioning themselves as a working class party. So that idea that like conservatives are the only ones giving to Reform, that's not true. And if the conservatives are going down already from their extremely diminished base, from 2024, it's going to be a pretty rough time. I'd say for conservatives, 12%. I mean, the thing is, conservatives, if they want to have like a chance, they really want to win this by-election, Northeast Somerset, over reform. Because I don't think the Labor I think the Labor nominee is a sacrificial lamb. Unless you know, they get endorsed by Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ comes down and says, just for Northeast Somerset and Honham, ignore this for the rest of the UK, but just vote for the Labour MP there, then they'll win by like 1%. Because the UK is godless heathens. But I'd really count them out of this election. They won by 11%. They're down by that much in the polls. That's throwing out the fact that there's a massive scandal here. The fact that Reform is doing better in these by-elections based on the polls. Um, I think they probably don't have a chance. But if conservatives aren't cracking 12%, aren't cracking 10% here, if they get like a result that's 9% or 8%, like they're not winning this by election. So that's just another insta flip for reform. Their caucus expands to six. And then what it is just like no seat is safe. You can have someone resign in the middle of London. Like Fan Bolle, I don't know, he shot a child or something. He resigns, and Reform flips it with a 25% plurality. Like, it, it means that no seat is safe. And it's pretty hard for these forecasts to accurately label where Reform is doing well, because, like, let's pick a random seat. Here, Northwest Cambridgeshire, Reform is flipping that by 0.4%. How'd they do in general election 2024? I picked a random seat, so I actually don't know where the hell this is. Um, Wait, I'm gonna look really dumb. I'm gonna look really dumb. Like, oh, here. That's actually a flip from the lip. My screen is killing itself. But like, it was relatively close between liberals and the conservatives. But Reform got 20% there. Like, forecasting how they go up from there is pretty hard. That's a Reform hold. But like, seats like I don't know. This is a some of these are good examples. I'm trying to look for one. But like some of these seats, Reform got like 15% of the vote in. Especially north up here. Uh and the seats were like conservatives, Reform, and Labor are tied. Like Reform got here. Rosendale and Darwin. Here. And I've lost it here. Like Reform got 22% there. It's really hard to extrapolate that, and these shifts are wild. Now you go to these this shift map here, like what the hell happened? It was relatively expected for Labour to gain in Scotland, but like the fact that they lost so much in so many of these seats, like it's insane. It's insane how Labour just did that bad in some of these seats, and gained in others. Like conservatives, I mean, falling here, but like not falling. Like that's kind of expected. Liberal Democrats was schizophrenic, of course. Though, what did you expect? Um, but like, you really can't pin down these shifts, and I mean, especially for here. That's why I wouldn't trust this because, like, you don't know. I mean, there's like 2,000 seats up, or 1641. Like you can't pin them down. But like, there's what 650 seats in the House of Commons. Like, you don't know. And there's like that mist of uncertainty because this is the safest of safest liberal seats. Like you can't quantify how safe Rudencorn and Helsby is for the liberals, or not liberals, for Labor, and it's flipping. Maybe it's flipping. It's polling to flip. Like one, imagine what that does to you psychologically, especially if you're a Labor MP who's like, I'm trying to pick one that's up over Reform. Oh yeah, that was kind of sad. Liz Truss lost her seat. Um, she's fine. I don't mind her. But like, imagine you're the MP. I don't know. Show me a close seat. God damn it. Yeah. No, that's it. Not really. Yeah, from Amber Valley. I don't know. Imagine you're Farnsworth. You're up 8% over Reform. My mouse is slipping. Like, imagine what that does to you psychologically if a 35% difference is overcome. Like, what do you do then? You're screwed. You're dead on arrival. Like, what are you gonna do? Eh, you have so many freshman MPs like that. I'm not saying that the government's gonna collapse, but like, I feel so bad for them. But setting aside the psychological aspect, because even I can expect that's kind of, or I can admit that's kind of a joke. Like, it, it makes it very hard to run a campaign for labor because, like, I don't think there's really a single projection here. Obviously, we got this. Can go to in case you guys want to see it. Actually, where the fuck is that? Where is it? Runcorn and Helsby. I want to show Runcorn and Helsby so I can say, oh, here. Yeah, it was a. Oh, it didn't show the general election 2029. I'm sad, but it was a Labor seat. Wow, I don't know why they don't have those results. But even in, like, the most reform friendly predictions, like taking the Find Out Now poll, which also another thing. This is a Find Out Now poll. They're not exactly the most accurate. Like, they're the ones who have reformed close to a majority nationwide, when really no major predictor has that. But, like, it, no, I don't think, besides for Find Out Now, like the most labor biased pollster, no one has any party getting a majority in the next British Parliament, which, well, that's gonna be fun because, like, more than likely we're gonna be waiting 5 years for the next UK elections. That's exactly what the Conservatives did. I mean, we knew the Conservatives were probably screwed. One, when Boris Johnson's approval rating went to 29%. I don't understand why this is exactly like, it looks so nice. It's like a beautiful dance, up and down and up and down, because, you know if those numbers add up to 100, and then they're like, oh yes, we'll add neither, and then for Rishi Sunak, there's not even a neither option. It's just like undecided. Like, no, make up your fucking mind, approve or disapprove. Jesus Christ. I like to think that they didn't even they gave the option for undecided, but like no one was undecided. They were just like, no, we all have an opinion. But in all seriousness, like, we knew the Conservatives were screwed pretty early on. Like, you have the general election 2019, and of course, COVID heightens the Conservative popularity. Imagine if they called a snap election here. Probably would end up like 2017, but I don't know. It's just a funny thought. Like, Conservatives win every seat, and then in 2025 they get their asses handed to them. Like, we knew pretty early on that it was over for the Conservatives. That they weren't going to do well. Like, obviously, in a Boris Johnson, this popular vote probably gives them a pretty terrible total. Then you have Partygate, which hurts him, and, like, it's looking bad. Then the Labor hits 51%. But, like, we knew for a while the Conservatives done. They said, no, no, we're not done. We'll win. But they delayed the general election. I think Labor will probably do the same thing, even if they're down. I mean, they're not down. They're up, which honestly for UK incumbent parties is probably the best. They hate their leaders more than France for some reason. Like, 24%. I think Macron got more than that in the first round in France, which is I just find that hilarious that Labour is, in a way, quantifiably doing worse than the French president. If you want me to talk about France, by the way, another option, free Marie Le Pen, fight, fight, fight. But yeah, it's looking pretty bad for Labor, but we do have to wait and see. These elections are coming up right around the corner. Subscribe, stay tuned. They're coming soon. Let me know if you like the more non-serious video style, because, like, this is not a serious country where where you have a year ago, um, you're staring down the barrel of, like, Labor getting this was almost every seat. Um, Labor's at 45%. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, they're gonna win everything, and then they somehow significantly underperform the polls out of nowhere. Like, the Smooth is like, oh yeah, they began to lose the momentum the final days. No, 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 no. This was just a massive polling miss. The UK's US style, but not a serious country. Thank you for watching. Godspeed. Share with your friends. Comment down below. Subscribe if you are new. Like the video. Godspeed.